Greetings everyone, this is Connor from Dagora TV, and in this video I'm talking about why a soundtrack is one of the most important factors to me in video games. So the reason I'm making this video is because at this moment in time I've not been able to really get a good grasp on what's been going on in the gaming industry. I've not been able to delve into a topic to be able to make a quick video on, so I wanted to kind of talk to you about an aspect to me, what is important in video games. I think probably more important to me than what it is kind of the general gaming populace, because it is, in some cases, it's even to the extent of maybe even make or break for me, the soundtrack. And the reason why the soundtrack and the score in particular, when it comes down to the video games, is important to me is because it's really that feeling of nostalgia, I think, when you're looking back on games of the past, or when you're even taking part in a scene. The soundtrack can really make or break scenes for me in video games, or cutscenes even, and even in movies and TV shows it makes it for me. Like, I think some of the love that I've got for some of my favourite shows and movies has come around because of how much I kind of love the soundtrack as well as goes on with it, because the soundtrack for me is something that I always listen out to in every single thing that I kind of take in when it comes down to my medium forms where it's included, where it is, you know, like TV, movies or video games. So as a person who's kind of always listening out for it, when it falls flat or it doesn't work, it can ruin a good scene for me at times. Sometimes, you know, it's kind of inconsequential if it's got, you know, if it's kind of not shredded in the best kind of situation, but sometimes it kind of completely falls apart. But I kind of wanted to give some examples of why it is just a major factor for me, and the first one I kind of want to talk about is the Elder Scrolls series, because, you know, that's kind of really what this channel's based around. And the three major games of the Elder Scrolls series, and we'll even Elder Scrolls Online, if I'm going to be honest with you, they're all known for having these big epic score soundtracks, you know, predominantly made by Jeremy Soule, who's one of my favourite favourite composers, if I'm going to be honest with you, of soundtracks of different mediums. And it's really the soundtrack really that kind of set you into the scene and really make you feel like, okay, this is a great thing I'm feeling right now. Like when you're walking around Skyrim, and, you know, you're going around the different scenery and you're taking part, looking into all the different vistas and everything, and you can hear, you know, just kind of somber music playing in the background, you know, lovely chimes of bells and stuff, and, you know, slight violins playing, and it just sounds beautiful. It kind of really sets you into the scene and really helps you get immersed. And that's a big factor about video game music in particular, is because the video game music is really made to kind of get you into the scene a lot more, and I find that really something that I kind of really love about when I'm playing games, when I'm playing these kind of games in particular, because combat music as well really helps you get into it. I can't really play many games with really bad combat music, or combat music where it plays the same tune over and over again, because it just kind of gets me a bit bored. And the power of nostalgia, when it comes down to it, when it looks back into games, the soundtrack is the one thing that remains a constant of, like, literally every time you play the song, it sounds exactly as you remember it, you know, when you think back to your favourite games. Like, people who haven't played, you know, when they think back to things like Final Fantasy VII and stuff like that, or the old Mario games, the Mario theme is a classic theme that, you know, you hear everywhere. You know, when you hear that tune, it gives you instant nostalgia and instant flow back to the first time you actually played Mario. Like, for me, you know, when it comes down to, like I was bringing back to before, Elder Scrolls, the main theme of the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind that was kind of also transferred into using the Skyrim as well, but with a quiet chanting. When you hear that original theme, you've heard that theme 1,000 times, people who are watching this video, 1,000 times. But every time you hear it, you know, you get a burst of nostalgia, you know, you get goosebumps when you hear it. Like, the amount of times I've heard that damn song when I've been editing videos, like, all the time I hear it, and it just still gets me, you know, like, it makes you think about the times when you're having a great time playing these Elder Scrolls games. And that's something that I also think Elder Scrolls Online did really well, was getting that power of nostalgia, having Elder Scrolls sounding music, but different enough for it to be unique in this game. Really, yeah, maybe kind of stick around probably longer than it should have done, because I was kind of listening to it and, okay, you know what, maybe this deserves a chance because I've nailed this aspect of the Elder Scrolls for me. And, you know, there's other games as well which I think of that fantastic soundtrack, you know, games like the Uncharted series as well. Like, that main theme of Uncharted, you know, is fantastic. You know, it's a fantastic theme, and when they kind of, in the intro sequence to Uncharted 4, when they were showing all the names on the screen of who's making the game and all that stuff, when they were playing the kind of like a bit of a remix of that theme, I was loving every minute of it. It kind of really got me hyped and excited for the game, because that's what the power of music has in everything. And, you know, me as someone who's a massive music fan, maybe that's why I'm kind of so into soundtracks so much. But it is something that I think is important. I think if when we get to Elder Scrolls 6, or any other video game for that matter, needs to get right. Like, for example, A game that I talk about a lot on this channel is Shadow of Mordor, and Shadow of War that's coming out. I haven't done a huge amount of videos on it, but I'm very much looking forward to that game coming out. It's my most anticipated game of this year, actually. And the soundtrack of Shadow of Mordor, I wasn't a huge fan of. I thought it was too repetitive of the same tunes. I thought it kind of overdid, you know, the kind of the same style of songs a bit too much. And I wasn't overly into it. I kind of liked when they added them fresh songs, like when you're talking to Lithrael and stuff like that. I liked the music then. But when you kind of kept hearing that same, you know, tune over and over again, I wasn't overly into it, and it kind of bummed my enjoyment of the game a little bit. And in some cases, maybe playing shorter sessions than if, you know, you do get that great song that kind of keeps you going, or that great, you know, soundtrack happening, like when you're in the train scene in Uncharted 2, that kind of really ups the ante. When you play that scene over and over again, you know, in subsequent playthroughs or whatever, you know, the music, you can really take account of the music and really adds to the scene and adds to the hype of it and everything, and that it kind of really gets you in the mood. And music is the most powerful way in video games to kind of get people into that. I personally feel, because a bad soundtrack, or if you take away the Uncharted games and remove the soundtrack completely, it just feels flat, you know, like, and there's so many, you know, as well, I think films tend to get more praise for the soundtrack than video games do. And, you know, films that have come out recently, like something like Baby Driver, you know, has got universal players because of how much, you know, the music sets the scene, or maybe in a Quentin Tarantino movie, you know, like Reservoir Dogs or something like that, they really set the scene of what, you know, is really happening there in that time, and kind of puts you into that tone of the film. And the same thing is said for video games, and for me even more so, because a game like the Witcher series has to have the soundtrack that fits the theme of the game, because if it doesn't, and it's got like a, you know, like the old Mario style theme, you know, the electro 80s kind of style theme behind it, it just feel completely off. It would kind of take you out, make you unimmersed of the game and make you less enjoyable of what's actually been on screen. But instead, you know, they have different themes for different cities in the game, whereas all consistent to that kind of Eastern European Balkan-like theme to it, and I really appreciated that, and it made my enjoyment of The Witcher far more enjoyable. And whenever I hear a Witcher song, whether in a background of a video, or I get nostalgic and go back to the game, or just ever so often I'll come across it on a recommended list on YouTube or something like that, or when I listen to the soundtrack, it gives you that kick of nostalgia and makes you want to go back. And it might sound like I'm harping on the same point, but I think as well a lot of people in my community would kind of agree with me, because whenever I do a video where I'm using, you know, Morrowind music or Oblivion music, where maybe these are games maybe people haven't played who are listening to this in so many years, because, you know, those games are very old now and they've moved on to other stuff. And when they hear the music in it, they always go like, oh, great use of the Oblivion music in the comments or something like that, or they'll be like, oh, that song's from Morrowind, what's the exact song, so I can listen to the whole thing again. And it gives people that kick maybe to go back and play the game, or listen to the music of what they had before, because it is such a great power of nostalgia. And nostalgia for me is such a great feeling, you know, like, even in stuff, you know, like Game of Thrones has come out recently. Watching old episodes of Game of Thrones again, you know, it just gives you that kick, you know, to go back. Or whenever I play Skyrim again and stuff like that, I just love that feeling of, you know, reflecting on the cool stuff that you've done in the past and reliving different things in a different way. And I wanted to kind of give some examples of what I think have been great soundtracks in video games. I'm going to give different reasons for them. So I've said the Elder Scrolls series and I've said the Uncharted series. We're kind of similar reasons, but they've got that big score. I tend to like the score, you know, the big, huge score where, you know, they've got the orchestra playing, or what sounds like an orchestra playing. I'm a big fan of that, and that goes across in movies as well. Like the Man of Steel soundtrack is fantastic. Anything with Hans Zimmer, to be honest with you, is a really great soundtrack. Or Howard Shore from the Lord of the Rings movies, really nostalgic and great. I said The Witcher. Another one that's different than the score, there was I Am Setsuna, which is a game that I think got into my top 10 video games of the year last year, I believe. And I Am Setsuna is a JRPG, it's a game I don't tend to normally play. And the soundtrack is just piano. It's just a piano theme, about an hour long of piano music, going into different, you know, obviously swaps and changes of soundtrack, do it wherever you are in the game. And it's a flawless piece of music. It's absolutely beautiful, you know, and it really cements you into the moments. Same thing can be said for a game like Brothers: The Two Sons as well. Like, really get you to those emotional moments and make you focus on what's going on the screen. And it kind of made me carry on with a genre that I wasn't, you know, too delved into, you know, and I made some mistakes in the game, and it kind of made me kind of carry on a little bit more, you know, and kind of give the game a bit more of a chance, because it kind of got me immersed into the world. And world building is one of the most another important factor of games to me, and soundtrack is a part of that. I think it's a major part of that. You know, you've got to have it suit the world that you're in. And I Am Setsuna, while doing it in a different style, for something that, you know, it's quite a large game, it works just as well. And I Am Setsuna, if you even don't want to play the game, just want to listen to the soundtrack, you know, it's a fantastic soundtrack to listen to, and it's really kind of emotional and really good, I think. Another ones is the old FIFA games, you know, from like FIFA 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10, because if you don't know me immensely, I am a really big, you know, FIFA, like, football fan, and I love the FIFA games of old. What I played a hell of a lot of as a kid And the songs they had, you know, during the menus, now I don't even listen to the menu music on FIFA anymore because I just listen to a podcast or something. But back in the day, when you'd listen to every bit of commentary and stuff, and, you know, you'd listen to the, you know, the music in between, you know the songs because you play the game that much. And now, recently, like, because all my friends kind of are big football fans as well and play FIFA, whenever one of them songs just pops up at random, you know, everyone knows the words and everyone's having a good time, you know, when you hear the music, because it reminds you of what it was like when you were like 11 or 12 playing these games. And it's the same kind of thing, even though that's more third-party music and is really different than what I've said so far. It's the same emotion, and it kind of reminds you of what the games were like and stuff. And yeah, nostalgia is a good memory, I think. And it's the same thing I'd say as well for the Mafia games. Again, another thing where it's setting you up for the world, and a great bit of world building along with it as well. Really gets you into that 40s and 50s style of Mafia 2, and the same thing with Mafia 3 in the late 60s. And it's something that I really loved about those games, is the soundtrack and the songs that they choose to kind of cement you, because it's the songs you recognise and you've heard before, but you learn them more and more, and you kind of hear the pop culture references and things like that, and it really helps get you into that world again. And I think the Mafia games really get that perfect. I think they get it a lot better than something like GTA does, personally, because I think it's easier for Mafia, because, you know, like, everyone wants to hear the classic songs from that bygone era, whereas now with GTA, because it's modern, you've got so much stuff going on, it's a bit more difficult. So thanks all for watching this video. This was a bit of a rambling video, by no means the best video I've ever made on the channel, but I wanted to kind of get it out for talk about something that I think is important in video games that I don't think it gets enough praise. Soundtracks. I think soundtracks is something that people kind of take for granted, and it's sometimes, even for me, that one of the first things I look for, and it's maybe kind of turn away from games. Like, an example for me is a movie example, not a video game, where I really enjoyed the film, and the film's great and people should go watch it, but the soundtrack was poor. Then it kind of made me think, like, okay, yeah, maybe, you know, I'm not going to like think as fondly as this as the other ones that have been of it. And that was Spider-Man Homecoming. I thought the film was really great. I really liked it. I loved the film, actually. It's just that the soundtrack was lacking, and it kind of makes me think, like, maybe that's what's got the head up on me for Spider-Man 2 and the original Spider-Man movie, because the themes of those movies are so great that they get stuck in my head, and it makes me think about how much I enjoyed that movie when I watched it. Whereas with Spider-Man Homecoming, there's not one theme in that movie that's kind of making me nostalgic when I think about it. But anyway, that's just me rambling. Let me know what are some of your favourite soundtracks in video games and in movies as well, if you want. Let me know if you think it's an important part for you. I know some people play games with the soundtrack completely turned off, which I think is completely ridiculous in my mind. I couldn't be able to do that. It'd be like torture for me. But let me know what you think about that, and let me know some of your favourite soundtracks and stuff like that. And I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.